Andreas Mihavec is an Austrian man who holds the record of surviving the longest without any food or liquids. He survived 18 days. On April 1st, 1979, the 18-year-old was accidentally placed in a holding cell due to his involvement in a car crash as a passenger. Unfortunately, he was completely overlooked by the 3 policemen responsible for him and remained forgotten in custody. In his basement cell, his cries went unheard. He survived by drinking condensed water from the walls, losing a staggering 53 pounds in weight during his ordeal. 18 days later, on April 19th, an officer who had unrelated business in the basement opened his cell after noticing the stench that was emanating from it. Mihavec survived, but it took him months to regain his health. During World War II, a remarkable event occurred when German Luftwaffe pilot Franz Stigler encountered the damaged aircraft of American pilot Charlie Brown. Stigler, who was tailing the plane, observed that the gunner was deceased, the crew was injured, and the plane was no longer a threat. Instead of shooting it down, Stigler chose to guide the plane to safety. The 2 pilots eventually met again 50 years later and formed a lasting friendship that endured until Stigler's passing in March 2008. Tragically, Brown also passed away just a few months later in November of the same year. On February 16, 2009, a distressing call was made to 911 dispatchers in Stamford, Connecticut. Sandra Harold, in a state of panic, reported that her friend, Charla Nash, was being brutally attacked and partially eaten by Harold's pet chimpanzee, Travis. When emergency services arrived at Harold's residence, they found Nash lying on the ground, her face severely disfigured and her fingers scattered around her. Nash underwent extensive surgery, including a reattachment of her jaw, and later traveled to Ohio for an experimental facial transplant. Travis, the chimpanzee, was taken out by the police during the incident. Toxicology reports later revealed that Travis had been given Xanax on the day of the attack, a detail Harold had mentioned to the police, suggesting the drug might have exacerbated his violent behavior. In 2008, Asia Leishon Ferguson, age 17, tragically died at Six Flags Over Georgia. Ignoring warning signs, he entered a restricted area to retrieve a hat and was decapitated by the Batman roller coaster. The ride, traveling at 50 miles per hour, struck him, resulting in an instant and gruesome death. Heartbreaking images show Senad Medanovic finding his home in ruins and his family deceased after the Bosnian army recaptured his hometown from Serb forces. Medanovic's 19-year-old sister, Enesa, met a horrific fate as she was burned alive. His niece suffered a similar tragedy, being wrapped and then offed. In total, Medanovic lost 3 brothers and other family members in the brutal violence. The remains of his family and those of over 50 villagers were discovered in a mass grave. The Bosnian War, which lasted from 1992 to 1995, resulted in the deaths of over 100,000 people, with more than 2.2 million individuals displaced from their homes. Serial killer Leonarda Cianciulli offed women for human sacrifice and made them into soap and tea cakes, convinced that it would protect her son from dying in battle in World War II. In 1941, after her husband was killed by Nazis, Russian woman Maria Oktyabrskaya sold her possessions to buy a tank, naming it Fighting Girlfriend. She fought Nazis on the Eastern Front, first battling in 1943 in Soviet Belarus. In a letter, she wrote, "I'm slaying bastards. Sometimes I'm so mad I can't see the light." On January 18, 1944, she destroyed 3 German gun nests and 21 enemies, repairing her tank under fire. She died on March 15, 1944, and was posthumously awarded Hero of the Soviet Union. Elizabeth Short, known as the Black Dahlia, was brutally offed in 1947. Her body was found bisected at the waist, drained of blood, and posed in a vacant lot in Los Angeles. Her face was slashed from mouth to ears in a gruesome Glasgow smile. The killer was never caught, and the case remains one of the most infamous unsolved murders in American history. Cheryl Shepard vanished on January 2nd, 1998, just days after a live marriage proposal from her boyfriend, Michael Lavoie, on national TV. Despite intensive searches and numerous leads, her body was never found. Lavoie, who displayed suspicious behavior and inconsistencies in his story, remains a person of interest. The haunting case is one of Canada's most chilling unsolved disappearances. The Ipswich serial offings, also known as the Suffolk Strangler case, involved the offing of 5 women in 2006 in Ipswich, England. The victims, all S workers, were found without clothes on in rural locations. Steve Wright, a local forklift driver, was convicted of the offings. His methodical approach and the speed of his crimes over just 10 days left the community in fear and shock. The Hungerford Massacre occurred on August 19, 1987, in Hungerford, England, when Michael Ryan went on a shooting spree, offing 16 people, including his mother, and wounding 15 others before offing himself. Armed with semi-automatic rifles and a handgun, Ryan's rampage lasted for several hours, leaving the town in shock and leading to significant changes in UK gun laws. Joshua Maddox, an 18-year-old from Colorado, went missing in 2008. 7 years later, his decomposed body was found in a chimney of a vacant cabin near his home. Disturbingly, he had nothing on except for a thin shirt, and his clothes were found inside the cabin. The cause of death was ruled as accidental, but the circumstances remain chillingly mysterious, leading to various unsettling theories about how he ended up there. Pablo Escobar once made half the Supreme Court of Colombia disappear in the Palace of Justice siege in 1985. Throughout his career as a kingpin, Escobar was responsible for killing at least 4,000 people, including an estimated 200 judges and 1,000 police, journalists, and government officials. This suit went viral on the internet. Some people said it was a Siberian bear hunting armor, but it's actually part of an exhibit called Witnesses to a Surrealist Vision. This exhibit contains artwork from the collections of surrealist artists such as André Breton and Max Ernst. This exhibit is meant to be similar to a 17th century cabinet of curiosities, also called Wunderkammer. At his luxurious estate in Puerto Triunfo, Pablo Escobar put together a private zoo filled with giraffes, hippos, elephants, and other animals. But after his death, 4 hippos were left unattended on the property and ended up thriving in the local environment. They ended up reproducing, and it's now estimated that there may be as many as 100 hippos roaming the surrounding areas, posing a massive invasive species threat for the local ecosystem. Scary, creepy, morbid facts. Episode 2. Coterniphobia is the fear of dead birds. Sedlec ossuary in Czechia contains art made from human bones. Buried alive fear, or tapophobia, is the dread of being mistakenly interred. Dale Hausner pretended to be a sports writer before being revealed as a serial killer. Coffin windows in Vermont are slanted to prevent witches from entering homes. The Iron Maiden was a medieval torture device resembling a coffin with spikes.